Well, good morning. Today we're making a dollar switch. Now, if you've not already seen the section on stripping wires and soldering hints, please review those first. These are these dollar switches. And you can put any little label on top of them, hopefully one that does not violate any copyright laws like this one does probably. But what it does, it turns a regular toy into a gross motor toy. Here's one I already have made up. There's no label on it though, but it just makes it so easy to switch and activate a toy. It does the same thing as the very expensive bubble switches, or these little button switches you can get, but they're around $50 a piece. I call these dollar switches because, well, yes, they are $1 a piece. Now what you need to start with a jumper system that has this 1/8 inch mono, it's called. I'll put some background here so maybe you can see this a little bit better. But they're mono because there's only two plugs. This is a cord with the same plug on each end, and there's only two pieces of metal that separate them from the positive and negative of the two switches. If you unfortunately get one that's a stereo, you get something that looks like this. This is the stereo that has three different sections on it. There's the stereo on my right, or the mono on my right, and the stereo on the left here too. So once you get that cord, go ahead and cut it in two. And what's that going to do? That's going to leave you with an end that you're going to strip off. It's going to be, I'll just re-strip this one to show you how easy it can be. You'll have an end just like this. Then use your wire stripper carefully, since it doesn't quite fit the size here. You're going to have these wires and you're going to separate them. You have all these loose copper wires. Separate those loose copper wires the best you possibly can. And even one little extra strand of that copper, if it touches the other side, that's enough to short it out. So we want to make sure you get every little piece of copper, exposed copper, and then twist them up and form a wire out of that. Now the other section here has the white insulation. You want to take about half of that off. So that leaves you with that configuration. If you can see that a little bit better there too. So hard to see in this light here. So once you got that, I'm going to use my helping hand system here, and I'm going to pre-solder these wires first. With a nice clean soldering iron. Put the soldering iron underneath, of course. Touch a little bit of solder to it and melt it quickly on that. So that kind of primes the wires first. And then the switch that we're going to use, here's the switch, here's a finished one from the back. The switch that we're going to use are these very cheap, what are called printed circuit board switches. They're around 5 cents a piece. And again, if I pre-solder these, I can just put a little piece of solder on each of the two connectors. And since I have solder already on the switches, let me clean this up a little better on this one side right here. Since I have solder on the connectors on the switch, and I have solder on the two wires, all I really need to do is just have a kind of steady hand, touch it together and leave it there long enough for it to melt the solder, and it'll just reattach onto the connector again. Okay. Once that is done, you really have all the soldering completed. In fact, I'll go ahead and plug this into this adapted toy here. This is how I check these things. And so if you just push that, you know it's going to be functional. How to make that switch. But of course, that's not a very convenient switch. So what I do, I have these things, I got these little 3x5 pieces of plexiglass just built for me, cut for me at the local hardware shop. And I've drilled two small holes here. I don't know if you can see that. There's two small holes which I'll use for a strain release later on.